film industry had extremely modest beginnings. To sum it all up, many inventors including Thomas Edison, the Lumiere brothers, and international innovators like Georges Méliès worked on devices that projected images throughout the 1800s. As a result, the silent film era was born. Although this era officially started in 1894, actual narrative films didn't start to make their true shines until the 1920s, better known as the Roaring Twenties. Since technology had its downsides at the time, these films had zero talking or music in them. For some films, however, pianos, organs, and even full orchestras performed music that was timed to the action being seen on the screen. Of course, for all films, there would be intertitles placed in between dialogue exchanges. Many moving images were produced during this period and exhibited on large screens in cinemas. This helped catapult the filmmaking experience, both on set and in theaters, to Olympian heights. In this video, I will cover 3 films from this specific era that I feel are not discussed too often. I also think that these films are a testament to the filmmaking language and to the technological advancements we see in films today. Start it up. Number 1, The Penalty. From 1920, starring a namesake of the silent film era, Lon Chaney. This film focuses on a man named Blizzard. As a child, he was involved in a terrible traffic accident. Both of his legs are unnecessarily amputated during the operation. The older he gets, the more dangerous he becomes as the leading crime boss of San Francisco's underworld. That's all we'll say about the plot right now, because there's literally more to this film than you think. Lon Chaney, the star of this film, used a complicated and excruciatingly painful device to imitate amputated legs, consisting of primarily 2 wooden buckets and numerous leather straps. Chaney's lower legs were bound together while his knees were resting in the buckets. According to the article, Chaney's Secrets Revealed, written by Michael F. Blake for the Kino Lorber DVD release, the actor refused to comply with the studio's doctor's request to refrain from using the device in order to maintain the authenticity of his role. I see this as an early example of method acting, and some people out there who have seen this film may not think so. The film itself, however, is quite powerful. It's a film that delves into the ideas of self-atonement, being able to hold yourself accountable for your character, regardless of people's perception and or opinion. It's all about how one can make a shift in their own life if given the opportunity. Sometimes that can be a grueling psychological process in and of itself. All of that is executed through complementary framing techniques. A somewhat catchy score, newly commissioned by the Mont Alto Motion Picture Orchestra, and the committed performances, especially from Lon Chaney. This role, and many others in Chaney's career, proves that he might be the godfather of on-screen method acting. It earned him the nickname, the Man of 1,000 Faces. I recommend this one. Number 2, Die Nibelungen. From 1924, adapted from a renowned German legend. Thankfully, this film adaptation is German, and yes, it is split up into 2 parts. Helmed by an architect of epic-scale filmmaking, Fritz Lang, this film translates an epic poem to the big screen almost effortlessly, with the coinciding stories of a headstrong warrior, his quest for glory, a fire-breathing dragon, a beautiful princess, and a saga of her turmoiled kingdom. I believe Fritz Lang is single-handedly responsible for influencing filmmakers such as Akira Kurosawa, Steven Spielberg, Denis Villeneuve, and even Peter Jackson, amongst countless others. The scope of these films is just incredibly astute and expressively expansive. These films were made almost 100 years ago, and they are just as dense, bombastic, and extravagant as any other films you see today. The first part, called Siegfried, covers a headstrong warrior's quest for righteousness and majesty through the hurdles of a kingdom that increasingly become jealous and observant of his abilities. The second part, called Kriemhild's Revenge, trails through the princess's new outlook on her life and the people around her after a spiraling chain of events that took place in the final act of the previous film. Without spoiling much, I can surely say that this story as a whole is a lot more tragic than I expected. The fact that these films are actually interesting and consistently engaging from a narrative perspective says so fucking much. For both parts, I can confidently say that I was on the edge of my seat constantly. These films are almost like ticking time bombs. They start off real calm and almost peaceful, but they progress to such gradually astronomical crescendos. The set pieces, production design, costumes, and immaculate framing compositions are templates for ideas that are exuded in films of the 21st century. Aggressively epic in every sense, the keys to German Expressionism. There's also accompanied by legendary, absolutely beautiful musical scores by unsung hero Gottfried Huppertz, who in my opinion is like an early equivalent to John Williams. These films, like the majority of Lang's Silence, were accompanied by an orchestra performing the score, specifically written for the film, in front of massive audiences. I am not making these comparisons just to appeal to my audience. I feel these comparisons are valid because these films are quality entertainment, exuding quality craftsmanship in their own right. Like Denis Villeneuve's Dune is to today's mainstream cinephile audience, I believe Fritz Lang's Die Nibelungen was the same for the German audience of the early 20th century. I highly recommend these films. Watch them immediately. Number 3, The Lodger, A Story of the London Fog. From 1927, we have an early Alfred Hitchcock film. Yes, early Alfred Hitchcock. Shoot, we all had to start somewhere. This is his third feature film overall, based on the 1913 novel of the same name, written by Marie Belloc Lowndes, and apparently a loose adaptation of Jack the Ripper, and released in the UK. The film's premise, a serial killer called the Avenger, is revealed to be responsible for the back-to-back murders of blonde-haired girls. A landlady and her husband take in a new lodger, but his appearance and occasional behavior begin to cause suspicion within the household. I want to keep the plot synopsis as vague as possible because this is a film that has a lot more on its mind than your average murder mystery. With this being my first Hitchcock film, yes, my first Hitchcock film, please do not judge me, I was kind of floored that this film is essentially a drama, tinged with romance and thriller. There's a love triangle, while there's also a bit of social commentary involving the corruption of law enforcement. Then there's a twist in the third act which completely flips the film's murder mystery trope on its head. The visual aesthetic overall is tinged with a murky, foggy atmosphere filmed in illustrious color tints. Even with the surprises that eventually occur, I was still on the edge of my seat throughout because of the film's set aesthetics. One thing I absolutely love about silent films is that the lack of sound really helps you feel and sink into each actor's performance. Their mannerisms, their body language, and most importantly, their eyes. With this being the first Hitchcock film that I watched in one sitting, and also for the time it was released, I was quite impressed. You go into this film expecting a cold-blooded suspense thriller, but you receive something more thought-provoking than you would imagine. It's safe for me to say that The Lodger most definitely caught me off guard, and immediately became one of my new favorite silent films. Hitchcock is surely on my radar after this one. Oh yeah.